something extraordinary is happening in the Vatican, and it's something that I haven't seen since I was a schoolboy, and observing the extraordinary pontificate of John Paul I and reading of the changes that were taking place day by day in terms of what today we would talk about optics. What then would simply headlines and huge photographs in the on the pages of the Times, and I think this as monumental. On day four of his pontificate, he is still he is grabbing headlines, because of the remarkable transformation unfolding at the moment in the heart of the Vatican. In less than a week since stepping onto the loggia of St. Peter's Basilica as the newly elected Bishop of Rome, as the Pope Leo the 14th has not merely adopted a new name, he has signalled an entirely new direction, a new era. His style, his tone, his actions have already departed decisively from those of his immediate predecessors, and nowhere is this shift more palatable, more evident than in his approach to Ukraine, where Francis was cautious, following the caution of Benedict and John Paul II. Leo is decisive. So the shadow of war cast across Eastern Europe, this continent once again trembling under the weight of imperial aggression, and Francis, who Leo has said is greatly revered, chose a path of anguished neutrality, and his moral imagination tethered, some might say, to the long-standing Vatican policy of diplomatic even-handedness. In 2016, he stood just 125 miles from Ukraine's border in Auschwitz, invoking memory but not proximity. He never crossed into Ukraine. He never directly named Russia as the aggressor, but by that point Russia had already seized Crimea. Pope Leo XIV, in contrast, has not hesitated. On the fourth day of his papacy, he spoke by telephone with President Zelensky. It wasn't merely a courtesy call, it was by all accounts a substantive and heartfelt conversation, and the Pope explicitly called for the return of the 20,000 Ukrainian children abducted by Russian forces since the invasion began in 2022, a matter on which Francis equivocated and outsourced to envoys like Cardinal Zuppi. Leo didn't speak of brotherhood between Ukrainians and Russians, a phrase that so incensed Ukrainians under siege. He didn't urge Kyiv to have the courage to wave the white flag, as Pope Francis disastrously advised in 2023. Instead, Leo has referred to Russia and to Russia's war as imperialist, a term with clear moral resonance. He's described the war as one of aggression, not tragedy, and he's signalled perhaps that the days of Vatican romanticism about the great mother Russia are numbered. But I think nevertheless, his relationship with the Eastern churches may well prove to be profound. There have been so many steps towards if not a reunion, certainly a level of friendliness that may see the Uniate churches, oddly, who have been such a barrier to that friendship, as the bridge between the Eastern churches and the West. And the Unit churches, of course, are very strong in Ukraine. To understand the magnitude of this change, we need to appreciate the burdens of history. The Vatican's instinct for neutrality in conflict stems from the 1929 Lateran Treaty, which limited the Holy See's role in mediation to cases where both parties consent. Yet neutrality, when justice is at stake, risks becoming complicity. And the papacy cannot wear blinkers in a world where evil doesn't arrive politely, dressed in symmetry, where evil is predatory and present. And Francis, Pope Francis, the son of Latin America and the Cold War's paranoid chessboard, viewed, I think, NATO and Russia with near equal suspicion. His 2022 remarks suggesting that NATO barking at Russia's door may have provoked the invasion of Ukraine were not merely naive, they were to Ukrainians profoundly offensive, and such language echoed Kremlin talking points and undermined the Vatican's moral standing. Those are not being repeated by Leo. Now, Leo, in word and gesture, has unshackled himself from that wobbling balance. His emphasis is not on abstract calls for peace alone, but on a just and lasting peace, words that matter. And his prioritization of the return of stolen children is not just humanitarian, it's profoundly theological. It echoes the Christian imperative to restore the lost, to redeem the broken, to shelter the innocent. Remember King Herod and the slaughter of the innocent. In this, Leo aligns more closely with the moral legacy of popes like John Paul II, who didn't fear to name totalitarianism, or even to that extent with Pope Benedict, whose clarity of speech often contrasted with the ambiguity of Francis. Francis, of course, was a Jesuit. He was trained in ambiguity. And there is more. Zelensky has invited the Pope to Ukraine. A visit, should Leo accept, would be unprecedented, powerful, and probably, and politically, globally seismic. It would symbolize not mere proximity, but solidarity with the suffering in Ukraine. Why does this matter? Because words from the papal balcony ripple across borders. Words from the papal audience chamber, from the Paul VI audience hall, resonate. They resonate in the chancelleries of Europe, in the bunkered corridors of the Kremlin, in the bombed cellars of Mariupol. By condemning Russia's actions plainly, Pope Leo helps restore a moral axis at the heart of global Catholicism, at the heart of Christianity. And because the Pope is not a war strategist nor a diplomat bound by realpolitik, he is a witness to the truth, and in moments of moral crisis, clarity is not arrogance, it's duty. And Leo feels bound to perform his duty. We are witnessing the early outlines of a papacy that may yet redefine Catholic moral authority in the 21st century, and Leo XIV has chosen to speak with precision, to act with compassion, and crucially to name evil where he sees it. In doing so, he has offered not only hope to Ukraine, but a challenge to the world to reject the false parity of suffering and to remember that peace, if it is to mean anything at all, must be anchored in justice and in truth. And so, just as Leo invoked Augustine, we are the times. Let us live well, and the times will be good. We are the times. We take responsibility for what happens now.